Back in 2012, my father divorced my mom for her friend whom he was cheating with and eventually got engaged the following year over summer. I was away doing an internship and found out he was engaged on Facebook. They gave me a date for the wedding. I was not sure if I wanted to go, but I wanted to support my dad. Well, 2 weeks before the date, they told me I popped on Facebook to scroll and see a bunch of posts about a family wedding that day. Yes, my father and new bride lied to his children about the date of their wedding and had never intended to invite us because she felt we would be a distraction to their big day. Fast forward to this year, 2024, and I am engaged, planning my wedding for the fall. My dad called me up the other night and asked if she was invited. Am I the jerk for not wanting her there on my big day? I want to support my dad, but at the same time, what they did to me as a teenager took me a very long time to get over. And if we're being honest, I don't know if I'll ever truly let it go. They made it so his kids were not welcomed while hers were in the wedding. They also took their honeymoon with family and friends on a cruise. Without us. Never even mentioned it. Curious if I'm being petty or if I am valid in not wanting her around during this time. One other note is, we are not, and have never been close since it came out. She was the other woman. They have never tried to include us in anything meaningful these past 12 years. Update, just to address a few things, I had no contact with my dad for about the first 6 years, and my wonderful-hearted mother asked me to try and rebuild some sort of relationship with him. So for her, I did. It's a very fragile relationship that has low expectations from me. I call for holidays and major events. He calls when he feels like. My mom is the sole person helping with my wedding. She would never allow me not to invite him. She doesn't agree with what he did to her, but she wants him to still be involved in her kids' lives, even if it's just what we allow. She is the only reason I would have even considered inviting my dad, let alone his wife. She has told me that it's my decision if I invite her. Either way, she is okay with my choice, just to explain why I even give him the time of day. My mom never wants to be remarried to him, but has worked on being able to see past his terrible life choices and still see a bit of good in him. She is the only reason he's getting an invite. I blamed my father mostly for what he did. Not his wife, but it was how they tried to pretend after he left that they had only started dating that was the start of me truly disliking her. They never wanted to admit they were together months before he left my mom and his family. They were. I have more than enough facts to know this is true. Anyway, it has taken many years to even consider wanting him in my life at all. His wife, I have no want to allow into mine. He himself has apologized for what he did, to an extent, on not inviting us to his wedding. It's actually a bitter argument still when they argue because he's never really forgiven her or himself for it. As he shouldn't. She is the one fighting with him to ask me to invite her. One last comment is thanks to everyone who took the time to comment and share your thoughts. It truly helped know me not inviting her wasn't being childish, considering all the facts. Now for a few comments before the update, comment 1. You're the idiot for not holding your dad responsible for being half of these choices. I know daughters can become absolutely pathetic seeking the approval of their fathers after divorce, and boy, are you living the stereotype. Disinvite your dad and get whatever therapy you need to realize that you've sold out your self-respect in order to support this mope. Your dad is a womanizer and nothing more. Wake up. Wake. Comment 2. Not the idiot. She has made it clear the extent to which she doesn't respect you and your siblings, and it's your day and you get to decide. You also would be not the idiot if you didn't want to include your dad, but I get why you may want him and not his wife to attend. Sorry you've had to deal with all that nonsense, especially when you were just a teenager. Now, for the update, thanks for sticking around to hear more of this mess. A lot has happened since I last posted. So I was deep in wedding planning when out of nowhere, my dad's wife, let's call her Jane, shows up at my mom's house. She's crying, saying she's made a terrible mistake and wants to make things right. She's begging for forgiveness, not just from me, but from my mom too. It was surreal watching the woman who helped break up my parents' marriage plead like that. My mom, bless her, just listened without saying a word. A few days later, I found out why Jane was suddenly so remorseful. My dad had been in an accident, a bad one. He was in the hospital unconscious. Jane was a wreck, saying it was karma for all the pain they'd caused. I didn't know what to feel. Angry, sure, but also scared I might lose my dad. I went to see him, and it was rough. Tubes and machines everywhere. Jane was there looking like she hadn't slept in days. She tried to talk to me, but I wasn't having it. I was there for my dad, not for heart-to-hearts with her. While my dad was recovering, something unexpected happened. Jane's own kids, who had been at their wedding, reached out to me. They said they were sorry for everything, and that they'd been too young to understand back then. They wanted to get to know their half-siblings. It was a lot to take in. Then my dad woke up. It was a miracle, really. He couldn't remember much, but he knew who I was, and that was enough for me. We talked, and he told me he regretted a lot of things, especially how he'd handled our relationship. He said he understood if I didn't want Jane at my wedding, but he hoped I'd consider it. I was torn. Here was my dad, vulnerable and regretful, and here was Jane, trying to make amends, and her kids, reaching out. It felt like everything was upside down. The wedding was getting closer, and I had to make a decision. I talked to my mom about it. She said she'd support whatever I chose, but reminded me that forgiveness can heal more than just the person who's forgiven. I thought about it a lot. In the end, I decided to invite Jane. Not for her, not even for my dad, but for me. I wanted to start my marriage without the weight of all that resentment. And I wanted my dad there, without the shadow of the past looming over us. The wedding day came, and it was beautiful. My mom walked me down the aisle, and my dad was there, with Jane. It was awkward, sure, but it was also a step forward. A step towards something better. But just when I thought we might have a chance at some kind of peace, the other shoe dropped. Right at the reception, Jane gets a call. Her ex-husband, the one before my dad, had passed away. It was a shock to everyone, especially her kids. They left immediately, and Jane was a mess. She apologized for leaving, but I told her to go, be with her family. It was a reminder that life is short and complicated, and that sometimes you have to let go of the past to grab hold of the future. So that's where we are now. My dad's getting better, and we're talking more. Jane's dealing with her own family drama, and I'm married to an amazing person who's been my rock through all of this. Thanks for reading. It's been a chaotic ride, but I'm hopeful for what's next. My partner's family hates me for my ethnicity and lies about being sick to manipulate us. So I expose their deceit and kick the brother out to show who's boss in my own house. So my partner, 30-year-old female, and I, 33-year-old male, were in a long-distance relationship for 10 years. Now we live together in our own home. The reason we were long-distance for so long is because his family doesn't like me. We come from different ethnic backgrounds, and his family, who are all single, are jealous. They have made our relationship difficult for years. They do not support us and constantly make him feel guilty for things he shouldn't. For example, whenever he came to see me, his family, especially his mom, would get jealous and then have a family meeting about him leaving their family to cater to me and doing more for the family. This includes driving his mom around because she refuses to drive herself. She needs someone to take her grocery shopping, to work, appointments, etc. Now we own our home thanks to my parents who helped us. If they hadn't helped, we would have been stuck in a long-distance relationship because his mom would have drained his money for rent as a way to try to keep him away from me. Moving forward, he is close with his brother. His mom helped his brother pay for a down payment, but she didn't help us at all. His brother has consistently tried to sabotage our relationship throughout the years because he is single and jealous that his brother is in a relationship. When their stepfather was alive, he was the only one who accepted our relationship and was very supportive. However, his brother would lie and claim that I flirted with their stepfather behind his back whenever he was at work and I was at their house. His brother would purposely go into the kitchen just to eavesdrop on our conversations and then report back to my fiancé, who would believe him. It has been over 6 years now, but my fiancé still believes his brother over me because he trusts him. This is extremely hurtful. Whenever we tried to sleep at his mom's house, I wasn't allowed to sleep over. We had to get a hotel for 10 years when I was in his city. His brother would rat us out to his mom. Now my fiancé wants him to come over to our house, but I am refusing to allow it. My fiancé tells me that I'm causing drama and holding on to hate, and that I should let it go. The funny thing is, his brother has never spoken to me or tried to have a relationship with me. He continues to speak poorly of me, and whenever I bring up my feelings, I am always gaslighted. By the way, my fiancé and I are in agreement regarding his mom and sister. His sister is not allowed in our home. I made this clear 2 years ago because they tried to break us up, caused drama in our relationship, and made it difficult for us to save money by forcing us to get hotels whenever I was in his city. Am I the idiot? Side note, we live 2 hours away from his city, but we bought a house in my home city. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. You can't let anybody into your home who disrespects you. You need to tell your fiancé this. Your family paid for your home, his didn't. Wield that like a hammer, make them all respect you. If your fiancé wants to defend his family's bad behavior, make him sleep on the couch. Long term, you may want to reconsider this relationship if your future husband can't at least defend you and protect you from his own family. Comment 2. Talk about bad decision-making, but you bought a house with someone who lets his family treat you this way? There is no D in the world that would make me think half of what you wrote here was okay. Want better for yourself, Lord. You're the idiot for this red flag relationship. Now for the update. Thanks for sticking around. Well, a lot has gone down since I last filled you in. Remember how I mentioned my fiancé's brother? The one who's been a thorn in our side for years? He did something that really shook things up. Out of the blue, he decided to move abroad. No warning, no discussion, just up and left. Everyone was stunned. His mom was a mess, crying about how her kids were abandoning her. My fiancé was torn up too, but he wouldn't admit it. He just kept saying it was a bold move, that his brother was chasing his dreams. But I could see the worry in his eyes. It was like he was thinking, what if he doesn't come back? What if I'm next? With his brother gone, things got weird. His mom started calling more, leaning on my fiancé for everything. It was like she was trying to fill the void with him, and he fell for it, hook, line, and sinker, started driving her around even more, helping with bills, you name it. It was like we were back at square one, with her pulling the strings and him dancing to her tune. Then, the surprise hit. His mom claimed she was sick, really sick. She needed someone to take care of her, and guess who she wanted? My fiancé. She was laying it on thick, guilt-tripping him about family and responsibility. And he was buying it, saying we might have to move back to help her out. I was furious. It felt like every time we took a step forward, they dragged us 3 steps back. But here's the kicker. I found out it was all a lie. His mom wasn't sick at all. She was just scared of being alone and used her health as a ploy to reel my fiancé back in. I was livid, all those years of manipulation, and she was still playing games. I told my fiancé, but he wouldn't believe me. Said I was being paranoid, that I had a vendetta against his family. It was like talking to a brick wall. Things got tense at home. We were arguing all the time, about his family, about trust, about our future. It was a mess. And then, as if things couldn't get any worse, his brother called. He was coming back. Not just for a visit, but for good. He'd failed at whatever he'd gone to do and needed a place to crash. My fiancé was over the moon, said it was a sign we should all be together. I felt like I was in a nightmare. His brother moved in, and it was like I was invisible. They'd talk for hours, laughing, making plans, and I was just there. It was clear I was the outsider, the one who didn't fit into their perfect little family picture. And now, here we are. His brother's back, his mom's got my fiancé wrapped around her finger, and I'm the bad guy for not playing along. I'm tired of fighting, of trying to make my fiancé see what's right in front of him. It's like I'm up against an army, and I'm just one person. I don't know what the future holds, but it's not looking bright. I'm stuck in a house with people who don't want me there, tied to a man who can't see he's being used. And the worst part? I'm starting to think I'm the one who's been played all along. Thanks for reading. My ex-girlfriend threatened me and our baby with a knife, but when her parents sued for visitation, I fought back with evidence and shut down their case. So my ex-girlfriend and I were together for 5 years, and everything was really perfect. We had our ups and downs, but nothing major, and we always solved everything through communication. However, everything changed when we had our baby, Kale. We had been living together for 3 years, our work was going well, and we were financially stable, so we decided it was time to start a family. She got pregnant on the first attempt. But when she found out she was pregnant, everything changed. She started resenting everything for no reason. Throughout her pregnancy, she was always angry and even started arguments over small things. I thought it was due to her hormones and the pregnancy, so I tried my best to understand and be patient, avoiding arguments and fights. But things got worse after Kaylee was born. After just 2 weeks, she completely changed, and there was hardly a day where she wasn't angry or screaming at me, and even at Kale, making her cry. Worried that she would harm Kale, I asked my boss to let me work from home, and he agreed. This was the best decision I ever made because when she was at home, she would scream and yell at both me and Kaylee for the smallest reasons. It was literal hell for everything. I calmly told her many times that we needed to seek therapy for help because we couldn't handle it anymore. However, this only made things worse. My breaking point was a year ago when, out of the blue, she pointed a knife at me and Kale while Kale was crying because she needed a diaper change. I wasn't afraid for myself, but for Kale's safety. Calmly, I talked to her and asked her to put down the knife so we could talk and resolve the issue. After 20 minutes, she finally put it down and went to sleep. That was enough for me. I packed up all our belongings, including Kale's, and immediately left the house. We drove to my parents' house. When we arrived, they saw us in a state of shock. After explaining what happened, they advised me to break up with her and have full custody of Kaylee because they were convinced she would hurt or even unalive her. Long story short, we broke up, and I got full custody of Kaylee. My ex was sent to a mental hospital because her mental health had worsened, and she couldn't even look at me or Kale without screaming and yelling the worst things imaginable. A week ago, all the mess and drama finally came to an end. However, the most shocking thing was her parents. They still defended my ex, claiming that I had ruined her life and should be ashamed of myself for what I did to their daughter. I exploded and told them that when I reached out to them about my ex's behavior, they never did anything and always told me to be a man and suck it up. So it was their fault, not mine, because I had tried my best for my ex while they never did. And then I said other not very nice things that I don't regret. A few days ago, I discussed this with my parents, and they agreed that her parents never really cared about their daughter. They told me that there was a nicer way to say it and I should apologize. But I don't think I did anything wrong, so I don't plan on apologizing. So, am I the AH? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I don't think you are the a-hole. You did what was needed to keep your child safe. Sounds like your ex has mental issues that were exacerbated by pregnancy and postpartum depression, and psychosis is a very real thing. I'm glad that she is seeking treatment to become well. The whole holding a knife and threatening to unalive you and your baby is insane. We had a nurse that got postpartum psychosis a few towns away from where I live, and she unalived her 3 children and tried to unalive herself. No joking matter. Comment 2. Not the a-hole. I'm sure her parents are in denial, but this is not your problem. And if their feelings are hurt, they can use the fact that their granddaughter wasn't stabbed to death by their batshit daughter because of your actions as a soothing salve for their hurt feelings. Now, for the update. Thanks for sticking around. A lot has happened since my last post. You wouldn't believe the turn of events. Just when I thought things were settling down, my ex's parents decided to sue me for grandparent visitation rights to Kaylee. They claimed I was unfairly keeping them from seeing their granddaughter. It was a low blow, especially after everything that had happened. I was confident I had nothing to worry about. I mean, they barely showed any interest in Kale when my ex was around, so why now? But here's where I messed up. In a moment of anger, I confronted them in public, accusing them of neglect and being terrible grandparents. It got heated and someone recorded the whole thing. The video went viral and suddenly I was the bad guy, the one who was keeping a sweet elderly couple from their only grandchild. The court date was set, and I was a bundle of nerves. I knew I had to prove that I was a good father and that Kale was better off without the toxicity of her maternal grandparents. But the video had damaged my reputation. My lawyer said it would be an uphill battle. Then, 2 days before the court hearing, my ex's sister reached out to me. She had been estranged from the family for years, and I barely knew her. She told me she had evidence that her parents were hurtful and that was the main reason she left home. She had kept diaries from her childhood, detailing every incident. She offered them to me as evidence for the court case. The court day arrived, and with her diaries, I was able to paint a clear picture of the kind of environment my ex had grown up in and the potential danger they could pose to Kaylee. The judge ruled in my favor, denying them any visitation rights. I was relieved, but the victory was bittersweet. I knew this was just another chapter in the ongoing saga. Just when I thought I could breathe again, my ex was released from the mental hospital. She showed up at my doorstep unannounced and uninvited. She was calmer, medicated, and in a much better state of mind. She apologized for everything and asked to see Kaylee. I was torn. She was Kaylee's mother, after all. But could I trust her? I agreed to supervised visits, hoping I wasn't making another mistake. The visits started off well. Kaylee was hesitant at first, but she began to warm up to her mother. My ex seemed genuinely improved, and I started to let my guard down. But then, during one visit, my ex broke down. She confessed that she had stopped taking her medication because she wanted to feel normal for her daughter. It was a step back. I had to end the visits, and it broke my heart to see Kale confused and upset. I was back to being the full-time protector, the sole provider of stability for my daughter. My parents were supportive, but I could see the strain it put on them too. It was a lot to handle, and I felt like I was always waiting for the other shoe to drop. Thanks for reading. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day. Have a